They don't call me the Alaskan pipeline for nothing. Hello, my name is Will, and this is Exploding Helicopters, the podcast asking you not to call me Bernard. Now, how bad does a film have to be before Steven Seagal won't star in it? It's a question to which the numbed witnesses of such rank offerings as Against the Dark or the lamentable Flight of Fury probably feel there is no answer. But it would appear the skeptics and naysayers are wrong. Impossible as it may seem, such a work does indeed exist. A film of such utter wretchedness that even old Totemface himself felt unwilling to grace it with his own immobile presence. As the brighter listeners among you may have already deduced, we're looking at the sequel to Half Past Dead, in which the divine Ponytail played a policeman who gets sent to prison on an undercover mission. So on this show, we're taking it back behind bars once again, but this time to review the Steven Seagal-free Half Past Dead 2. Joining me to review the film is a man who's never afraid to slum it, otherwise he wouldn't be appearing on this podcast. It's my good friend Nick Rehak. How you doing, buddy?
All things considered, I'm doing pretty great. Will, how are you?
I am doing very well, and I am looking forward to talking about Half Past Dead 2 with you, because it's only a little while since we were talking about Half Past Dead, the original film, and that was only a few months ago, and that was the first time that you had ever watched that film, and I was able to break the news to you there of the existence of Half Past Dead 2, so I'm looking forward to sort of completing the Half Past Dead journey with you.
It's something, and I was excited at first, and then I saw the movie, and I was like, "What am I doing?"
Look, I mean, that's not the first time that people have come to regret their involvement in this podcast after watching a film that I've requested of them. So yes, I apologise now. But you know what, Nick? You do, when you next time you sort of log in and check out Letterboxd, Half Past Dead will be there amongst your sort of completed franchises.
That is true, and I'm fairly certain this is the first time that I've been on this show and done a direct sequel to a film and also talked about that original sequel.
Well, there you go. Look, you're knocking off firsts left, right, and centre. So you may regret ever watching this film. You may regret ever being involved in this podcast. But you know what? You're
I'll
breaking.
Never regret the friends made along the way.
Exactly, you're breaking new ground with the choices that I'm making for you. So shut up and thank me.
Thank you.
Okay. I think it's time to get stuck into Half Past Dead 2. So let's listen to Trailer Man explain the film's recipe.
Take the most violent criminals in the country.
There's a war coming on. Either you with us, or you with Cortez.
I ain't with nobody.
Lock them up in one impenetrable fortress.
You were in my way.
Now, watch the anger
I'll let you take the first swing.
boil over.
There's a riot in the cafeteria. Put it in lockdown. I'm on it.
To survive, they'll have to escape or die trying. Half Past Dead 2.
With no Steven Seagal or indeed Ja Rule in the cast, this film follows Twitch, a motor-mouthed streetwise criminal we met briefly in Half Past Dead. He gets himself deliberately transferred from New Alcatraz prison to a harsher maximum security prison. He claims it's to be closer to his girlfriend, but his real motive is to escape and find a large stash of gold that was at the centre of the previous film's plot. At the new prison, Twitch encounters Burke, a powerful solitary inmate who keeps to himself. The mismatched pair are forced into an uneasy alliance when tensions between rival prison gangs erupts into a full-scale riot. As anarchy spreads throughout the jail, one of the inmates seizes two hostages. In a plot contrivance too tiresome to explain, the captives happen to be Twitch's girlfriend and Burke's daughter. Thrown together by circumstance, the two prisoners team up to rescue their loved ones and possibly recover the gold. In the lead role, we have rapper turned actor Corrupt, who, in all likelihood, you won't remember from Half Past Dead. Another link back to the original film is the reappearance of Tony Plana as the absurdly colourful prison warden El Fuego. Opposite Corrupt, we have wrestler turned actor Bill Goldberg, and there's a few other familiar faces in the form of Robert Lasardo and Jack Conley. The film, which came out in 2007, is directed by veteran stuntman, actor, director Art Camacho. It has a user rating on IMDb of 4.3 out of 10 and a user rating on Letterboxd of 2.7 out of 5. So with all of that out of the way, Nick, what did you make of Half Past Dead 2?
It's certainly a movie. And I think that there's genuinely a good premise there, but I feel like they do a lot of stretching just to make the connection to Half Past Dead, the first one. I feel like you could have lost that connection and just called this something altogether different, and you still would have had the same fine a time, if not maybe a touch better. It's you can tell, like, there's no way this was ever released in theaters, right? Like, this is clearly just a direct-to-DVD or VHS at the time, or just direct-to-television even, because the acting isn't the best. It's not the worst, but it isn't the best, and there's some weird editing in the film, too. Like, it's as if they were on, like, a deadline for some who-knows-what reason. It just feels like just kind of thrown together, and it's consistent, and it makes enough sense, I guess, to get you from A to B. But it's also very just not memorable. I watched it this morning, and I'm still, like, in my head trying to figure out, like, okay, yeah, that did happen, or no, that's so generic that couldn't have happened, or am I thinking of the right prison film where a gang takes over and they got to call in hostages, or is it another one? So it's just very... I think the nicest way to say it is it's just very lackluster. And I kind of wanted something a little more exciting. You know what I mean? You got somebody like Goldberg, who's, we just talked about Santa Slay a couple months ago. And I was expecting maybe something a little more from him, or like from his wrestler, or just something a little more memorable, something he could bring to the character. And we just get a generic tough guy. And yes, you get some back and forth between him and Corrupt. And even Corrupt's character doesn't feel like dialed up. It feels like he's just kind of there again. It doesn't feel anything new about his character, and it just made me want more out of it.
Well, Corrupt's character is the most... I mean, how has he survived in jail? Because he is a truly, truly irritating character.
Yeah,
I mean,
obnoxious.
I don't know how he hasn't been shanked or kind of stomped, to death at some point in a prison. We're meant to believe that he's kind of like a long-term jailbird, but he's a supremely irritating character. But I completely understand the point that you make about the fact that this film is so vanilla and is so unmemorable, because I watched this film like 2 or 3 days ago, and I had to watch, before recording, a couple of hours ago, I thought, I need to go back and watch this film again, because I can barely, how am I going to talk about it? I can, it completely evaporated from my mind. So I needed to kind of watch a little bit to remind myself. And I agree with yourself. Like, it's a movie. It has a clear beginning, middle, and end, and a plot, but it just nothing or hardly anything within it is memorable. It's just like countless other films that you have seen, and there are little moments within the film where you just think, well, we watch a lot of generic films, and some of them really stick in your mind because there are like unique moments, or there are colourful characters, or there are like standout scenes, and they help you, they help that particular movie stick in your mind. Whereas this film has none of those. It's a complete absence of anything that is memorable. And I think, moments that kind of really bring that home, for instance, are like that beginning scene at the start of the film where we are at New Alcatraz, and we get that we get a little scene with Tony Plana, where, being his theatrical El Fuego prison warden, And it's just like, okay, this feels like a movie. Yes, this is completely ridiculous scene, completely ridiculous performance, completely ridiculous character, but like, so what? This is a movie. We're here to enjoy ourselves. And, you know, Tony Plana seems to understand exactly what he's doing with that role, and he's like hamming it up shamelessly. But then after that, like, everybody else, they haven't got the chops to elevate this C grade material to anything other than just being simply C grade.
Yeah, and it kind of stinks because there's so much possibility for, like you said, something unique for us to have that moment in there, and we don't get it. We just get something that feels kind of phoned in, very generic premise. Even like the reason behind the motivation is just we're really, you know, pulling at straw here to get something going. And when we do, it just, that excitement level isn't there. And a lot of stuff just doesn't match up. I feel like a lot of the music doesn't match up to the scenes. I feel like stuff is just kind of shoved in there ham-fistedly, and there's no DMX in the film, which is disappointing because in Half Past Dead, the first one, plenty of DMX in there to get you excited, get you going. We don't get that with this film. And even the fight sequences, to me, seem kind of dull. I feel like the fight sequences are just people punching at each other and the camera shaking a whole lot. Like, there's no reason for the camera to shake as much as it does during the action scenes outside to just say, like, hey, it's an action scene and there's a lot going on. Not really. There's just... I don't want to say amateur. I don't. But it doesn't feel like there's a lot of love and belief behind the film. And like you said, we watched a handful of generic things, sure, but there's something unique about it. There's a character that stands out. There's something about the plot that stands out. Everything that we see in here has been done before, and this time around, it's either wholly cliched or just very contrived even. Like, if you're doing something this low budget, assumedly, and something this kind of under the radar, why not take an extra chance? Why not just do something a little over the top, sure, to get the film notice and stuff, but if it's just going to go direct to DVD or whatever streaming service anyway, just take a chance. Try something a little bit different and get an original idea out there. And they could have done that with this film. There's a couple instances where they could have tried something a little bit better or even just done some punch-up work here and there, but we don't get that. Instead, we just get something that's just very by the numbers. You could watch it on streaming, and at the bottom, just kind of scrub through with your mouse to see preview images of whatever, and you could watch the whole film that way and understand what happened. Like, that's how unmemorable this movie is at times. It's just like, yep, I know what's going on here. Yeah. You can just look at the image and know what's going on. And it's disappointing because there is so much potential with such a simple premise.
Do you think, is there really that much potential here? Really? I mean,
genuinely do. If you had some characters that were really intriguing, if you had just a couple extra ounces of pressure when they're taking hostages, if you had better lighting, if you had just a little bit better editing. I mean, there's a couple moments where a punch is thrown and it cuts to a half second, like, while the punch is being thrown, and then we see the connection. It's not like edit for the punch to connection. Like, spoilers, Goldberg gets shot, and there's like a weird half-second pause, hesitation for a reaction, and I'm like, did something glitch? Am I buffering? No, it's just the way the film is edited. Like, there's just... They could have done more. I mean, in Half Past Dead, they had a helicopter crashed into the prison, and it's in there dangling. And we know you didn't even have to see that movie. They reminded us in flashbacks that had happened. And,
but
the budget exciting.
The budget for Half Past Dead was 25 million. The budget for Half Past Dead 2 was 1.5 million. So I'm thinking they probably had, like, you know, it was a 20-day film shoot or something, like a really tight schedule. So there's just sort of there's no time for a rehearsal, you know. So in terms of, I agree with you about the fight sequences. They are really, really lame. But, like, there was probably no time to do rehearsals and choreograph anything more complicated. So they just just doing something very, very simple, and they're just shooting that. You know, I agree with you. Like, I would love it. I'd love there to be some more originality within here. I'd love there to be some color within the kind of, like, predictable beats that we get here. But I wonder if the fact that it is so vanilla, so familiar, so within the kind of like tropes of like prison movies. It's just a consequence of like they're on a very tight schedule, and there's a whole bunch of dialogue scenes they got to get down, and it doesn't leave a lot of time for doing much else.
Well, I think if they cut out some of those cliches, they might succeed. Like the very beginning, we're told that Corrupt's character, who's I don't even know his name, like that's just Twitch. That's just how generic his character is. He's just like, kind of obnoxious. The whole reason he's transferred to this new prison is this way he can break out and then go find this gold, because he knows where $160 million in gold is. But there's a guy at the other prison who also knows, and he's out in a month. So immediately we have a month's timeline in order for him to get out. We could use that race against time as a factor in this movie to ramp up some of the pressure and excitement. We could cut back and forth between him and whatever's going on in that other prison. If that guy is out, if he's getting close, and we can divulge little bits of information here and there along the way to kind of just ramp up that, oh no, is he going to get there? Is he not going to get there? With the introduction of his girl, we can kind of humanize his character a little bit more, and we can kind of be on his side. And if we see that he's kind of funny with her and charming and lovely, okay, then that character grows on us. Now all of a sudden, here's Goldberg, and in situation with his daughter and how those two are kind of together as hostages. Like, there's just so much we could have pulled from and leaned on to ratchet up the tension, to add to we're racing against time still. Like, really, we barely even touch on the fact that he's got to beat this other guy because he only has so much amount of time to this gold. Like, I just feel like they say it for the sake of tying it to the previous film and not necessarily to drive the plot forward.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit more. I mean, what did you think of this film as a continuation of the story from Half Past Dead? I mean, and I'm going to steer you a little bit with the kind of first part here, because I'm going to say, because the whole premise of this film is about searching for the gold that was the kind of the central plot part of the first film. But the first film ended with Steven Seagal seemingly recovering the gold that Lester had secretly stashed. So there was no suggestion that, and the idea in this film is that, oh yeah, they only found half the gold, but that wasn't any suggestion that was left in the mind of people who watched the first film. So they've taken a massive liberty with that. I mean, we do have other connective tissue here in the sense of we get Corrupt is a character that we met in the first film, and here he is now the central figure. We've got Tony Plana's El Fuego prison warden sort of in this film a little bit at the beginning and end. So yeah, how did you find this film as a continuation of Half Past Dead?
I like that they kind of took that liberty and ran with it. I think it would have been that much stronger if there had been a throwaway line or moment of him sitting there reading a letter, from Steven Seagal's character and being like, "What does he mean half? Like, how does he only know about half?" And then that other smarmy little prisoner being like, "Oh, there was only half that you didn't hear. He only found half the gold, and blah blah blah. I'm gonna get out of here in a month, and this and that." And then it solidifies it a little bit more. It's a good jumping off point, but from there, like we keep saying, it just evolves into this kind of cliche prison riot. There's hostages, bring in the governor, and I need a helicopter to escape kind of thing. And even, the big bad that we get, Cortez, he's kind of following in Morris Chestnut's steps in that he's trying to be like this cold and calculated kind of guy. And he just kind of comes across as like bland and not really threatening if he doesn't have a gun. So we're trying to rehash some character tropes and we don't really get that. But at least the jumping off point is like, okay, this is different. He's going to another prison because it's easier to break out of that one. But it's also not like he's getting in there and he's like, hey man, I got to break out. Let's try to find some schematics, or let's do this. I got a month. Again, like there's just none of that time crunch or none of that tension. So it's almost forgettable. And like I said,
that is a weird aspect of this film, because the whole, like the central premise of this film is that Corrupt is getting transferred to this prison so that he can actually escape and recover this coal. But he gets transferred to this prison, and there's no sense that he has any plan as to how to escape from this prison. And this prison that he gets transferred to, it's presented as the most secure prison in America. It's like the ultimate maximum security prison. So, like, if he was going to escape, he presumably would have been having a better job. Like, the idea within the film is that, yes, the location of the prison is nearer where the gold is, but it sounds as if he would actually have a better chance of escaping from the prison where he was in New Alcatraz rather than the one that he gets transferred to. So none of that element makes any kind of sense whatsoever. He just gets getting embroidered in it. But having said that, there is some other little connective tissue that I picked up on that I was actually kind of quite amused by, because I don't know how well you remember Half Past Dead, the original film, which is not a spectacularly good film by any stretch of the imagination, but Twitch's girlfriend in that film is completely different to the girlfriend that he has in this film. And the film, and credit to the film does address that point in a little moment of dialogue. I don't know if you remember it. She sort of says, "Oh, I forgave you when you had that dalliance with that really like fat girlfriend." I mean, that's direct the dialogue from the film.
Which was weird. I was like, okay.
and
I don't need to call their names. Like,
yeah, exactly. And it's just like, well, I think they're just worried that, oh yeah, like, I mean, I had actually, it was only when I sort of like briefly rewatched some of the film this like earlier today that I kind of picked up on that. Like, yeah, he did have a completely different girlfriend. And I did kind of admire the fact that they had, hey, you know what? Some viewers might remember that he had a different girlfriend, and maybe we should kind of incorporate that into the plot. So I appreciated some of the attempts to smooth out some of the potential continuity errors.
Yeah, it's a weird moment of like paying attention to detail, which is kind of nice to see in a film
but
like
paying
this.
attention to the wrong details.
Yeah, that's the other part of it. It's like, okay, sure, but, you know, again, if he's trying to break out of this prison, did he get here because it's easier, quote unquote, or did he get here because somehow, like, you know, that it's closer to where his girl is,
Yeah.
right? Because she even says, you know, how dare you come to a place, I'm paraphrasing, how dare you come here where it's closer, but I can't still, like, be with you fully, and this and that. And maybe there's a moment in the plot where if he would have met up with her for a conjugal visit, he better explains his plan. But we don't get that because of the breakdowns and the hostage situation and things like that. So in another world, maybe there's a scene where we get that, but we clearly don't get that here.
Talking of continuity issues, again, it was only on the rewatch that I kind of picked up on it, where I was very amused by El Fuego's complete rewriting of history. Like, I don't know if you remember that the scene at the beginning where he's in the prison yard and he's kind of lecturing the grandstanding to the prisoners there, and he's saying, you know, he's basically doing one of those speeches where it's like, you know, I'm the boss of this place, you know, I'm the toughest guy.
Island.
Yeah, this is my island. And you know, in a callback to Half Past Dead, he's sort of saying, you know, I've dealt with prisoners trying to sort of take over, you know, and I've slapped them down like bitches. Nobody wins on my island but me. And it's just like, I've watched Half Past Dead. That's definitely not what happened.
Like, at all.
You got slapped down like a bitch.
No, you don't. You don't. What are you going to slap down a helicopter? Get out of here. Ridiculous.
So there's a.
And how do those prisoners not already know that story going into this, right?
I mean, he's in complete delusion. He's complete fantasist. I mean, that was sure. I mean, I guess it's kind of within character, as you know, a guy as sort of arrogant, as sort of caught up in his own sort of self-worth as him would probably believe what he's saying. But yeah, I can't think that the prisoners are buying any of that particular speech whatsoever. But At the centre of this film, much like the first one, actually, we have a kind of odd couple pairing. So, in the first film, we had Steven Seagal paired with Ja Rule, and that was kind of the buddy cop element of that film. Here we have Corrupt, who's this cocky motormouth street punk, paired up with Goldberg as this taciturn, lumbering Hulk. Just wants to serve out his time, and it's a classic kind of chalk and cheese pairing. How well did they work as a double act for you here?
I think it worked eventually. At first, it takes too long to get where we want them to be. And obviously, they're not going to immediately be buddy-buddy. He's a new prisoner transferring in. Goldberg's been there for a while, and he's Burke. He's a loner, all this other stuff, sure. But by the end of the film, we kind of start to see a better back and forth between the two, better repertoire, if you will. I don't even think that's the word, but it's still a better relationship. I mean, they even push it a little bit further into territory when we get to like kind of an epilogue type scene where Corrupt's character kind of comes back to the prison and they're talking a little bit. Although it does feel kind of awkward. It feels like they're more talking at each other than with each other. Like there's moments where it doesn't even look like they're in the same room. It just looks like weird editing tricks. But eventually, once they kind of figure each other out, they get to that place. And I don't know if it's Goldberg's acting or Corrupt's acting. I think I'm going to lean a little more towards Goldberg's acting because at least Corrupt is a little more like expressive and exciting, and there's an energy there to talk to, whereas Goldberg is just playing the heavy. Like he's just, I'm this big bad dude, and it's kind of hard to pull out any kind of quote unquote leading man energy from that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I do think that Goldberg seems to warm up within this film, and I'm not overly familiar with his filmography, so I don't know how early in his acting career this is, but he's doing that man of, tough guy, man of few words type role. And, weirdly, you would think, oh, actually, saying less is probably easier for somebody who is not like full-time actor, but actually I think those roles where you're not required to say anything, they're actually in some ways more demanding acting roles, because you need to be able to convey something in those moments where you're not speaking. And I think within this film, I think some of the earlier scenes where Goldberg is trying to be that sort of taciturn man of few words, he hasn't quite worked out how to sort of play those roles. And as you say, like later on, when he's developed a bit of a relationship with Corrupt, he's actually sort of interacting with him as an actor. He comes across as better because he's actually probably feels a little bit more comfortable in those scenes, because it's probably a bit clearer to him as to like what he's sort of needing to get across as an actor.
And honestly, I think your use of warm up works really well, because he does tend to play like that muscle man, right? That cold, I'm not going to say much of anything. I'm fairly certain this is so early in his career that it was like Santa's sleigh and then this. And if you remember from Santa's sleigh, he's just Santa Claus running around with a couple one-liners and zingers and killing people. That's it. But this, he has to carry the conversation. He has to have a back and forth with his daughter, which at times, even those feel weird. It feels more like he's talking to like a girlfriend or maybe even a wife. It doesn't feel like he's talking to his daughter. And I'm like, okay, we could have worded this a little bit differently, or there could have been some warmth over here. Like there's not even emotion kind of peeking through there. Like I get when he's walking through a corridor and he bumps into somebody and they're like, hey, what's your problem? He's like, you're standing in my way. It's like, all right, we get it. There's the muscle man. There's the loner part of it. But, okay, show us the human aspect, because that's the thing that we need to connect to in order to root for your character. There's some people that might just go, yeah, I'm rooting for Goldberg because I know him from WCW or WWF or whatever. But in this, it doesn't work. He's got to be a little more personable. He's got to bring a little more life to this character, and we just don't get it until, like, I agree with you, until the end when it's, like, kind of figuring out this character. But by then, it's too little too late.
Now, the budget of Half Past Dead was 25 million. The budget of Half Past Dead 2 was 1.5 million. So there's an understandable difference in the quality of the sets, the action, the actors. Half Past Dead had 16 times the budget of this particular film. Did Half Past Dead feel 16 times better than this film?
Ooh. I'm gonna.
What's your ratio? If it's not 16
Wow.
times, Nick, I want a ratio.
I mean, maybe 10 times better. I don't think a full 16. I really don't. Because even now, I'm trying to remember Half Past Dead, and the only thing I can remember is just the explosion and the skydiving and the helicopter initially crashing. I can't remember much of Seagal's dialogue or Ja Rule's character. Like, some of that stuff I can't remember, as outlandish as some of it was. Like I'm pretty certain. Like, what do you say? Cuckoo crazy or something?
He does say cuckoo crazy.
And we do get one or two lines like that early on in the film. You know what I mean? They don't call me the Alaskan pipeline for nothing. Or when you got Cortez's character talking to the warden, he's like, "Don't forget the helicopter." There's a couple goofy things like that. But I think the film tries to take itself too serious and let corrupt be kind of the funny bits in there. And it doesn't really work all that well. I'm not saying the whole thing's got to be played up for yucks, but there needs to be more of a balance here, and we just don't get it.
The only thing I remember of Half Past Dead is near people's eye makeup, which was frankly sensational. But each to their own. Each to their own. But okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be looking at the exploding helicopter action.
On the streets of Chicago, one man stands above the rest. A man of action. A man of passion. A man of steel. A hard-hitting cop with his own way of getting the job done.
You don't like my methods, tough. How many dead bodies this time, Steel?
Now Steele's case is a psychotic serial killer.
The heart assassin's joke, You know his habits. You know how he thinks.
A sadistic mass murderer, fresh out on parole.
Beg to die.
It's like the guy snapped, It's like he's got to kill.
Don't cross it. If I come looking for you.
I want you to make his life a nightmare.
On these streets, there's only one law. Steele's Law. Fred Williamson, Bo Svensson, and introducing Doran Ingram. Steele's Law from Academy Entertainment.
We're back, and now we're looking at the exploding helicopter action. This occurs during an expository scene where Corrupt has to clue Bill Goldberg in on exactly why he got transferred to this prison. As part of the explanation, we see snippets from Half Past Dead, including the scene where Lester, the man who stole the gold originally, blows himself and the helicopter he's flying using a bomb he's wearing under his shirt. There's only a brief shot of the chopper before the bomb on board explodes, destroying the aircraft. Nick, what did you make of the exploding helicopter action?
When this happened, I thought to myself, there's another one in here. It's not just this. Because we've seen this. And I even commented that I like the big explosion. We get a full-fledged fireball here. A big, beautiful, and the wrecks falling down at the camera. And we don't get that a lot, right? Usually we just get a partial explosion, cut to a reaction, cut back to the helicopters falling from the sky, cut back to the film, and off we go. But to reuse a reuse, because they reuse that footage from the Charlie's Angels movie.
Exactly.
Is so mind-boggling to me. When this happened, I'm like, there's no way. There's got to be another one. Because there's a helicopter on the way. The governor's bringing one. But no, this is the one. This is the one we got. And I'm not going to lie, little disappointed.
Well, you know what, Nick? This was why I was excited to do this film with you, because I wanted you to experience the horror, the delight, the revelatory moment of a film that shamelessly reuses the exploding helicopter from the earlier film within the context of in the context of the sequel. Yeah, I was delighted to be able to inflict this particular exploding helicopter on you, because what is there really to add? I mean, we've reviewed this exploding helicopter already when we reviewed Half Past Dead, so there's nothing really new for us to say, apart from to remark upon the fact that here we have almost unique sort of experience where we are reviewing the same exploding helicopter within a new film. I mean, we have seen exploding helicopters reused, or kind of stock footage of exploding helicopters reused in multiple films before. I mean, that is a phenomenon that we are very well aware of. Narrow Margin, there's an exploding helicopter in the Gene Hackman 1990 film Narrow Margin, which has been reused in at least 5 films. The exploding helicopter that we see here, which, as you say, I mean, it's getting up there for Narrow Margin scale of reusability, because, as you say, the footage that Half Past Dead was using, it borrowed shots from Charlie's Angels Full Throttle, which had come out a couple of years beforehand. Half Past Dead reused some of the shots from that film in terms of their film. That footage from that exploding helicopter in Charlie's Angels has also been reused in Black Dynamite. Fantastic.
Okay. Yeah,
fantastic little blaxploitation parody film there. Highly recommend that movie. And then it's also then been reused in Half Past Dead 2. So it's kind of getting up there as one of the sort of most reused bits of stock footage. But it's kind of unique in the sense of it's reusing Charlie's Angel footage, but it's the same footage that we saw in Half Past Dead, and it's the same exploding helicopter that we saw in Half Past Dead 2. There is another example of sort of like a previous of kind of continuity within a franchise of an exploding helicopter in one film being repeated in another film. So Rambo Last Blood, I don't know if you've watched that film. There is a kind of montage sequence at the end of that film which reprises little clips from all of the previous Rambo movies, and one of the clips that they reuse is one of the exploding helicopters from Rambo 3. So that is the only other film, Rambo Last Blood is the only other film to reuse a kind of in-universe exploding helicopter in a kind of later film, in a kind of shameless sort of rehash. So what you have witnessed in Half Past Dead, as kind of cheap, tacky, and shameless as it is kind of unique, Nick.
I mean, I guess if you frame it that way, it does sound unique and it's nice. And honestly, it did look like they kind of ran it through a bit of a filter, maybe a little bit of sepia tone added to it. So, like, I guess that makes it kind of different enough, but I'm still just like, there's got to be one more. You can't bring a helicopter in. It's Chekhov's helicopter. You can't bring a helicopter in and not blow it up in some way, shape, and form. You can't do a bait and switch on me like that.
Well, there is a lot of talk about the governor's helicopter, which does really, for people like ourselves, that does set your antennae twitching. So you're kind of thinking,
bringing it up. They keep bringing it up.
They keep bringing it up. So you're thinking They wouldn't keep mentioning it if it wasn't going to be playing a key role in this film, but it is a bit of a bait and switch, and probably not a good one. Let's be honest.
At least it is a quality explosion. Like I said, we get a big, beautiful explosion. It's falling down, so it's artistic. It's really well designed. So it's not like they're just grabbing some junk one or like a throwaway. At least if they're going to recycle it, they're recycling some quality.
Yeah. For fans of exploding helicopters, I should say that Art Camacho, who is the director of this film, he does actually appear in this film as an actor. He has a fight scene with Bill Goldberg in this film. He is somebody who has appeared in 7 films with an exploding helicopter, so he's got some very good pedigree within the genre, and he did appear in Half Past Dead, the original film. He was flying. Actually, he was actually flying the helicopter. Is it the helicopter? I think it was the helicopter that gets blown up, or was it the helicopter that is pursuing the helicopter that gets blown up? He was flying a helicopter. He appears in Half Past Dead, and he was flying a helicopter. Anyway, just as much as anyone needs to really know. But you know what, Nick? I think this is a good point to wrap things up for this show. So before I slam the cell door shut, is there anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, you can find me over at rabbitholepodcasts.com. I'm over there doing Lyrical Innuendo. It's a program with myself and Bubba Wheat where we take a song, we look at its lyrics, determine is it about sex, drugs, or good old-fashioned rock and roll. And there's also Play MST for me. Jason Soto and myself are watching every episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000 from the beginning in order. We are somewhere in Season 3, and I'm having fun.
As always, don't forget to check out the Exploding Helicopter website at explodinghelicopter.com for more reviews and information on helicopter explosions in film. If you want to keep in touch with what's going on, you can follow Exploding Helicopter on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, Letterboxd, and YouTube. If you can help spread the word about what we do by rating, reviewing, or reposting, we'd be very grateful. We'll be back soon, but until then, what should people do, Nick?
Keep watching the skies for that recycled exploding helicopter footage. This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Now, what I'm about to do is gonna set us up for life.
Really? Man, are you serious?
Trust me. And then I'll get you anything you want.
All I want is for you to come home.
Well, listen to me, baby. I could set up a little home, sweet home right here. You know, set up one of those little conjugal visiting rooms. You know what I mean? Slide you something special.
Really? You can make that happen?
You know I can. They don't call me the Alaskan pipeline for nothing.